You'll never find anyone better than me, my ex texted for the third time this week. He was wrong. I found his dad, and apparently genetics run in the family. I'm Maya, 27 years old, female, and my phone lit up at 2:11 a.m. with the same sentence I could recite in my sleep. You'll never find anyone better than me. Liam, 29 years old, male, my ex, had sent it for the third time this week like it was a coupon code that hadn't expired. I stared at his name, that stupid little heart still next to it because I hadn't figured out how to stop muscle memory from sabotaging me. The message hovered over my cracked screen protector, a spiderweb I got the night he put his fist through our kitchen cabinet because the delivery guy brought Coke instead of Diet Coke, and somehow that was a referendum on my loyalty. I can explain Liam in objects. The dent in my old Corolla's passenger door. He kicked it after a bar argument about whether I respected him enough to laugh at his jokes. The chipped ceramic fox bookend. He knocked it off the shelf when I said I wanted to spend Christmas with my mom. The wilted fiddle leaf fig in the corner, the plant he convinced me to buy, said we'd learn responsibility together and then let die because watering schedules are needy. Being with him felt like living in a room where everything was one shove away from becoming a weapon or a memory. Jess, 28 years old, female, my best friend since middle school, says I collect red flags like they're enamel pins. She was the one who helped me move out 2 months ago, loading my life into her rattly SUV while Liam paced on the sidewalk barefoot, crying hard enough to curdle milk. He alternated between promising he'd go to therapy and swearing he'd never forgive me for humiliating him by leaving first. A neighbor peeked through their blinds. Liam, never one to resist an audience, kept raising his voice, throwing in lines like, "You're abandoning your family," as if we had more binding us than 2 toothbrushes and a Netflix profile named Babe. I didn't leave because of one big thing. It was 1,000 small repeated things, like a drip wearing grooves into stone. He would read my emails when I was in the shower. He'd memorize my social passwords for emergencies, and then accidentally reset them if I went out without him. Once I woke up to find him kneeling by my nightstand, scrolling through my diary. When I reached for it, he jerked back like I was the intruder. Later, he cried into my hair and said he was just scared of losing me. That was always the punchline. I made him break the rules because I was too breakable. Daniel, 55 years old, male, Liam's dad, entered my life as a complication I wasn't prepared for. The first time I met him was last summer at Liam's cousin's cookout. He showed up in paint-streaked jeans, smelling like cedar, with soft hands that were still rough at the edges. He built decks for a living, laughed with his whole body, and had this quiet way of sitting next to you that made you feel less alone. He asked me about my job in a voice like a late-night radio host, listened, really listened, and when Liam cut me off to tell a story about himself, as usual, Daniel put a hand on his son's shoulder and said, "Let her finish." It was such a small sentence, but I remember it because it felt like someone cracked a window in a stale room. Back then, I filed Daniel under "Sweet Man, Off Limits," because, of course, I was still trying to make us work, me and Liam. The night of the Coke incident, when the cabinet splintered and my phone hit the floor, Daniel was the one who drove over. He didn't yell. He just stood in our kitchen, eyes wet, and asked his son, "Is this who you want to be?" Liam stormed out without answering, slamming the door so hard the broken cabinet swung and thudded, this dull, tired sound. Daniel helped me sweep up the shards. He told me, quietly, that he used to be like that too, and that he hated that parts of him had clearly trickled down. At 2:11 a.m., staring at Liam's newest prophecy about my future loneliness, I remembered Daniel's hands shaking when he said it. I remembered the way he looked at the ruined wheat-patterned cabinet like it was a photograph of a mistake he'd made twice. I didn't respond to Liam. I slid my phone face down and lay awake until the birds started gossiping at the windowsill, wondering how a person can be both a warning and a map. The thing about obsessive exes is that silence doesn't discourage them. It fuels them. By noon that same day, Liam had sent me 8 more texts. One was just the word whore in all caps. Another was a selfie of him crying in his car, seatbelt across his bare chest like he'd ripped his shirt off mid-meltdown. He ended with, "I know you'll come crawling back. You're not built to be alone." I was at Jess's kitchen table, drinking burnt coffee while she went through job applications. She looked over my shoulder at the phone and said, "Block him, please, before he shows up here." And that was the thing. We both knew he would. The last time I ignored him, he parked outside my building at 3 a.m. with his hazards on, blasting our song so loud a neighbor threw a beer bottle at his hood. He'd only left after the cops came, and even then he texted me, "Tell them we were just talking." That night, I locked every door, drew the curtains, and still jumped at every sound outside. At 1:42 a.m., I heard gravel crunch in the driveway. Jess peeked through the blinds, mouth tight. "It's him." He stumbled toward the porch light, drunk or pretending to be, clutching a grocery store bouquet. Red roses, still wrapped in plastic with the clearance sticker. He started pounding on the door, calling my name like a stage actor. "Maya, baby, please. You know I can't sleep without you." When we didn't answer, he switched gears. The pleading cracked into rage. "You think you're better than me? Who the fuck do you think you are?" His voice echoed through the quiet neighborhood. Somewhere, a dog barked. Jess whispered, "Call the cops." I did. But by the time they arrived, Liam was gone. The bouquet was shredded across the porch like confetti. Stems snapped, petals ground into the wood. One of the cops, tired eyes and a notepad, said, "Next time he steps foot here, get a restraining order. This is harassment." The word tasted metallic in my mouth. Harassment. Like finally calling something by its real name instead of a pet name. The next day, I took a long drive, windows down, just to breathe air that wasn't soured by him. I didn't plan where I was going until I pulled up in front of Daniel's place, Liam's dad. His truck was in the driveway, back bumper dented, tools scattered in the bed. For a second, I almost turned around. It felt like trespassing into family territory I had no right to enter. But then he stepped out onto the porch, wiping sawdust off his jeans, and when he saw me, his face softened like he'd been expecting me. "Maya," he said, voice low, steady. "You all right?" And I wasn't. I broke. Told him about the texts, the driveway, the shredded roses. Told him how tired I was of waiting for the next crash. He didn't interrupt. Just stood there, nodding slowly, jaw tight with a fury that wasn't directed at me for once. When I finished, he rubbed his face with both hands and muttered, "I should have done more when he was younger. Should have stopped this before it started." We sat on the porch steps until dusk, cicadas buzzing like static. For the first time in months, I felt like someone was on my side, not pitying me, not telling me to just ignore it, but actually seeing the danger. Daniel put his hand over mine, rough and warm. "You're not crazy. You're not weak. You deserve better than him." And for the first time, I believed it. Don't forget to subscribe. The cops had barely finished their report when Liam struck again. Not at me this time, at my car. 2 mornings later, I walked out of Jess's driveway to find my Corolla sitting low on the asphalt, all 4 tires slashed clean through. The roses were nothing compared to this. The paint was keyed too, one word scrawled down the side in jagged letters. Slut. I remember standing there, keys dangling useless in my hand, feeling like the whole neighborhood could see the humiliation branded on my car. Jess gasped, phone already in her hand. "You know this was him. Who else?" I filed another report, shaking so hard I had to steady the pen against the clipboard. The officer nodded like he'd seen this 1,000 times. "It's escalating. Document everything. Don't respond to him. Don't engage." Easier said than done, because Liam wasn't just harassing me, he was performing. By that afternoon, he'd posted a story on Instagram, a close-up of his face, red-eyed, with the caption, "She ruined me. Don't believe her lies." Then a video of my slashed car, zoomed in like evidence, and his voice narrating, "This is what cheaters deserve." He tagged me. My phone lit up with DMs, half from strangers calling me every name in the book, half from old acquaintances asking, "Maya, what the hell is going on?" My hands wouldn't stop trembling. It wasn't just private anymore. He wanted me cornered, humiliated. That evening, Daniel showed up at Jess's place with a toolbox in one hand and a 6-pack of ginger ale in the other. He'd seen the posts too. His jaw was tight, muscles flexing as he lifted the ruined tires into his truck bed. "He thinks this makes him a man," Daniel muttered. "I'll show him what being a man actually looks like." I should have told him to let the police handle it. But the truth? Watching Daniel work, sleeves rolled, movement steady, voice low, it was the first time in weeks I felt something other than fear. He didn't flinch at the mess. He didn't make me feel stupid for crying on the curb. He just fixed what he could and sat with me for the parts he couldn't. When the car was patched enough to get me moving again, we sat in the cab of his truck, the smell of motor oil and pine air freshener wrapping around me. Daniel turned to me, voice gravel rough. I'm not going to stand by and watch him do this to you. He's my son, but he's also not right. And if he keeps coming, you're staying with me. I didn't argue, because deep down, I wanted that. Wanted the protection, the solidity. Wanted him. But Liam wasn't about to let go. At 3 a.m., he proved it, by pounding on Daniel's front door, screaming loud enough to wake the neighbors. I jolted awake on the couch, heart slamming in my chest, as Daniel stormed toward the door. Liam's voice cracked through the wood. You stole her from me, my own dad. What the fuck is wrong with you? The porch light flicked on. And just like that, the secret wasn't a secret anymore. The sound of Liam's fists on Daniel's front door was like gunshots, every slam rattling through my ribs. Daniel didn't hesitate. He swung the door open so hard it smacked the siding, and there Liam was. Hair wild, shirtless, veins bulging in his neck, spit flying as he screamed. You fucking traitor, he howled, jabbing a finger at his father. You stole her. You couldn't keep Mom, so now you're trying to steal my girl? Daniel stepped forward, shoulders squared. Go home, Liam. His voice was calm, but the kind that carries weight. The voice that shuts down fights before they start. Except this time, Liam wasn't shutting down. He lunged, shoved Daniel in the chest, hard enough that he stumbled back a step. You ruined everything, Liam screamed. You always wanted to be better than me and now you're fucking her? My stomach dropped. Neighbors' lights were flicking on, curtains twitching. I knew phones were filming. This wasn't private anymore. It was a neighborhood spectacle. Daniel didn't move to swing. He just braced, arms crossed like a wall. Enough, he said. You keep this up, you'll end up in cuffs again. That word, again, snapped something in Liam. He grabbed a flower pot from the porch and hurled it against the siding. Ceramic exploded, dirt splattering across the doorway. I screamed, instinctively pressing against the living room wall, heart in my throat. Then Liam's eyes found me through the glass. He pointed, face twisted. You think he's going to save you? He's just using you, Maya. Just like Mom. Just like everyone. His voice cracked into a sob, the manic rage tipping toward pathetic desperation. You're mine. You'll always be mine. That was the moment Daniel finally moved. He stepped off the porch and got in Liam's space, voice low but deadly clear. She doesn't belong to you. She doesn't belong to anyone. And if you come near her again, near this house again, I'll make sure you're locked up so long you forget what daylight looks like. Liam shoved him again, but before Daniel could even react, red and blue lights painted the yard. Two cruisers screeched up, tires crunching gravel. Officers spilled out, hands on holsters. Hands where we can see them! Liam froze, chest heaving, wild-eyed under the flood of headlights. For a split second, he looked like a little boy caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Then he dropped to his knees, hands up, sobbing so loud it echoed down the street. She was supposed to love me. They cuffed him right there in the grass while neighbors filmed from their porches. Daniel's jaw clenched as he watched his son dragged to the cruiser, still wailing. One officer took my statement while I trembled on the porch, clutching a blanket around me like armor. He said they'd add this to the harassment reports, that it was enough for a restraining order, maybe even charges. As the car door slammed and the cruiser pulled away, Liam pressed his forehead against the window glass, staring at me like he could burn holes through it. My stomach turned cold. I knew this wasn't over, not even close. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. Wow. I honestly didn't expect my post to blow up the way it did. I wrote it shaking, just trying to get it all out. And then I put my phone down because I couldn't deal with more screens. When I came back, there were thousands of comments, DMs, even some absolute psychos who found my Instagram. Yep, Liam's little stunt made sure I couldn't hide anymore. First of all, thank you. Seriously. Some of you said things I didn't even know I needed to hear, like that I wasn't being dramatic, that what Liam is doing is abuse, and that my fear isn't weakness. Reading strangers validate what I've been living through was grounding, in a way. One comment that stuck with me said, "Red flags aren't just warnings, they're proof you've already been hit." That hit me in the gut. But then there were the other comments, the ones that said I was gross for even mentioning Daniel in my story. Some of y'all went straight to, "She's sleeping with her ex's dad," and called me every name under the sun. Let me just say this. I don't owe the internet my defense, but I'll say it anyway. I wasn't plotting some revenge fling. Daniel was just there. He listened. He made me feel safe when his son was making me feel hunted. That's not romance. That's survival. Do I trust myself enough to know where this is going? Not yet. But stop acting like I crawled into his bed the second I packed up my toothbrush. If anything, I've been terrified of how right it feels to be around him. Now, about what happened after part 4. Yes, Liam was arrested. Yes, I filed for a restraining order. And yes, Daniel was standing right next to me at the courthouse when I did. It felt surreal, like something out of a bad drama. But the judge granted it on the spot after seeing the police reports. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. Of course, Liam didn't stay locked up. His mom bailed him out within 48 hours. Fun fact, she texted me too, calling me a homewrecker for turning father against son. Lady, maybe raise your son better before you come at me. Since then, Liam's been quieter. Online, at least. His accounts are gone. But I'm not naive. Quiet doesn't mean gone. Quiet usually means planning. And if there's one thing I've learned about him, it's that he doesn't let go without taking something down with him. So yeah, I'm scared. But I'm also angry now. Angry enough to stop just reacting and start thinking about how to take control of this mess. Some of you suggested burning his whole world down. Tempting, not gonna lie. But I think there's a sweeter way to do it. Something he won't see coming. And the best part? It's not me who's going to deliver it. The restraining order ink wasn't even dry before Liam broke it. 3 days after his mom bailed him out, I came home to find a pile of my old stuff dumped on Jess's lawn. Clothes, shoes, a box of notebooks, even a bra knotted around the mailbox. Scrawled across the cardboard box in spray paint. Used goods. Jess stormed outside, ready to light the pile on fire just to get rid of it, but Daniel stopped her. He crouched, gloved hands picking through the mess with a calm precision. "He kept this stuff," Daniel muttered, holding up one of my journals. "That's not just anger, that's obsession." I filed another report, but the cops were blunt. Violation of a restraining order is serious, but unless they caught him in the act, it'd be paperwork on top of paperwork. I felt sick. He was circling me, marking territory, daring me to fight back. And then he went after my job. I work at a small marketing agency downtown. Monday morning, my boss called me into her office with an awkward look on her face. She slid her phone across the desk. It was an email, sent from an anonymous account, attaching screenshots of my supposed affair with a married man, Daniel. Photos cropped from Facebook, captions twisted. Unethical employee seducing her ex's father. How can clients trust her? I wanted to sink through the floor. My boss, thankfully, wasn't buying it. She'd seen enough petty drama to know a smear campaign when it walked in. But she still warned me. "Maya, this is bleeding into your work. Keep documentation because if he escalates here, HR can't ignore it." I left the office shaking, equal parts humiliated and furious. Liam wasn't just trying to scare me anymore. He wanted to erase me, to make me untouchable. That night at Daniel's place, I slammed my phone onto his table, the screenshot still pulled up. "He's not going to stop," I said, voice breaking. "He's going to take everything from me, piece by piece." Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he leaned forward, elbows braced on the table, eyes dark. Then we stopped playing defense. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means he thrives on spectacle," Daniel said, "on making noise, on controlling the story. So we take that from him. We show people who he really is. Not your coworkers, not your neighbors, everyone." The way he said it made my pulse quicken. Not from fear, but from the sudden, dangerous thrill of imagining Liam cornered in his own trap. That was the night we started planning. Not just to survive him, to ruin him. And poetic justice? It was going to come from the one person Liam never thought would betray him. His father. The plan came together faster than I thought. Daniel still had access to Liam's old Facebook account. Not the password, but years' worth of messages Liam had sent him during drunken rants. Every one of them was poison. Misogynistic slurs, violent fantasies, even voice memos where Liam bragged about teaching Maya a lesson after punching a wall. Daniel sat across from me at his kitchen table, scrolling through them on his laptop. "He thinks this is bonding," Daniel said, disgust twisting his face. "But it's evidence." We gathered everything: screenshots of texts, videos of him screaming on porches, photos of my vandalized car, and compiled it into a neat little folder. And then we leaked it. Not to the cops, not to HR, to everyone he cared about being seen by. First, Daniel posted a public Facebook note. It wasn't flowery, wasn't dramatic. Just a father finally speaking the truth. "This is my son, Liam. I love him, but he's dangerous. He's harassed, stalked, and abused Maya, the woman he claimed to love. He's vandalized property, broken laws, and humiliated himself. If you've defended him before, look at the evidence below and decide again." The screenshots were attached. The videos, too. Within minutes, it was being shared. His co-workers saw it. His neighbors. Even his mom's church group. Then we timed the kicker. Jess, God bless her loyalty, sent the folder anonymously to Liam's workplace HR. He was a gym trainer, bragging constantly about his reputation. That reputation shattered overnight. Clients canceled. His boss suspended him, pending investigation. By evening, Liam exploded. He showed up outside Daniel's again, drunk, this time with a baseball bat. He swung it at Daniel's mailbox, splintering wood, screaming, "You ruined me! You ruined your own son!" Neighbors called the cops before I even had my shoes on. Daniel stepped out onto the porch, arms crossed, calm as ever. "No, Liam," he said loud enough for everyone filming to hear. "You ruined yourself. All I did was show people the truth." Liam charged up the lawn, bat raised. For one frozen second, I thought this was it. Someone was going to bleed. But the cops tackled him before he even hit the porch steps. The bat clattered across the grass, flashing red-blue lights catching on the metal. They dragged him off kicking, spitting, howling. And this time, there was no bail. The charges stacked: harassment, vandalism, violation of the restraining order, weapon possession. I stood on that porch, shaking, neighbors staring, phones recording, and felt something I hadn't in months. Not fear, not shame, relief, and maybe, if I was honest, a dark satisfaction watching him sob like a child as they shoved him into the cruiser. He'd wanted a spectacle. Now he was the show. Update 2. Well, that escalated even faster than I thought. Yes, for everyone asking, Liam is in jail. Not just overnight, not just a slap on the wrist. They stacked the charges, and unless his mom wins the lottery to post bond again, he's going to be sitting there for a while. The cop who took my statement this time literally said, "He's cooked." Hearing that felt like breathing after being underwater too long. I didn't expect this post to turn into a whole saga, but holy hell, Reddit. You guys are wild. Some of you are calling this soap opera of the year. Others are convinced I scripted the whole thing. To the guy who said this sounds like the plot of a Lifetime movie. Yeah, except Lifetime would have left out the part where Liam tried to take out a mailbox with a baseball bat. And then there are the comments about Daniel. Again, I knew it would be messy, but y'all are either shipping us like it's a rom-com or roasting me like I'm the villain. Let me clear something up. Daniel isn't just some rebound or plot twist. He's been steady. He's been the only person who didn't make me feel crazy. The only one who stood next to me in a courthouse instead of behind a screen. Do I know what that means long-term? No, but I know it feels safe. And after Liam, safe feels revolutionary. One comment that gutted me. You didn't just survive Liam. You dismantled the story he built about himself. That's it. That's exactly how it feels. For so long, Liam told me I was weak, needy, nothing without him. But standing on that porch while cops tackled him in front of the whole neighborhood, hearing Daniel say, "You ruined yourself," it flipped something in me. It was his own words, his own actions, his own lies that destroyed him. Not me. Some people said revenge wouldn't heal me. Maybe you're right. But I'll tell you what, it helped. Watching him trapped in the spectacle he created, watching the mask slip in front of everyone he wanted to impress, that was sweeter than any apology he could have faked. Now, what comes next? I honestly don't know. Restraining orders, court dates, maybe even testimony. I'm bracing for all of that. But tonight, for the first time in months, I'm not pacing, not checking the window, not waiting for my phone to buzz at 2 a.m. I'm just breathing. And Daniel's on the porch, fixing the damn mailbox Liam smashed. Sometimes genetics run in the family. Thank God for that. The morning after Liam's arrest, my phone buzzed nonstop. Not from him, thank God, but from coworkers, old friends, even people I barely knew in high school. Everyone had seen the videos. Someone had filmed the whole bad incident from their porch and posted it to TikTok. By sunrise, it had over 200,000 views. The caption read, "Local man goes feral at his dad's house over ex-girlfriend. Guess who ends up in cuffs?" The comments were brutal. People dug through his public accounts, pulling up his old gym selfies and cocky captions. They stitched the meltdown video with screenshots from Daniel's Facebook post. Liam had spent years curating himself as some alpha male, and now he was a meme. My favorite one? A freeze frame of him screaming paired with, "When she leaves you for the upgraded DNA package." It should have felt cruel. Instead, it felt like justice. But the fallout wasn't just online. That afternoon, his gym announced they'd terminated his contract due to recent public incidents. His mom showed up at Jess's house banging on the door, calling me a slut, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Daniel stepped outside before I could even react. "Go home, Marlene," he said flatly. "Your son did this, not Maya." She left in tears, but not before spitting at the mailbox Daniel had just repaired. Then came the legal hammer. 2 days later, we were subpoenaed to testify at a bail hearing. I sat in that courtroom, palms sweating, while Liam shuffled in wearing an orange jumpsuit, wrists chained. His eyes darted between me and his father like a wounded animal. When the judge listed out the charges, stalking, vandalism, violation of a protective order, disorderly conduct with a weapon, his shoulders finally slumped. For once, he didn't shout, didn't perform. He just looked small. The judge denied bail. Straight up said, "You've demonstrated you're a danger to the community." Watching the bailiff lead him out while he kept his eyes glued on me, it was the closest thing to closure I'd ever felt. After court, I stood outside with Daniel, the late autumn wind whipping around us. I expected to feel empty or guilty or something complicated. Instead, I just felt steady, like the ground had finally stopped shaking under my feet. Daniel broke the silence first. "You're free of him now." His voice cracked a little. "I'm sorry I didn't stop this sooner." I turned to him, and before I could think, before I could second guess, I kissed him. Right there on the courthouse steps, with lawyers and journalists and God knows who watching. It wasn't planned. It wasn't revenge. It was just real. And for the first time in this whole nightmare, I realized Liam hadn't just lost me. He'd lost the story. Sentencing came 6 weeks later. I almost didn't go. I told myself I'd moved on, that I didn't need to watch Liam's final act. But Jess looked me in the eye that morning and said, "You deserve to see him face the end of his story." So I went. The courtroom was packed. Neighbors, reporters, even a few of Liam's old gym buddies who now looked embarrassed to be there. Daniel sat beside me, steady as ever, his hand covering mine. When Liam shuffled in, chains clinking, the room hushed. His once bulked frame looked shrunken in the jumpsuit. The prosecution laid it all out. The vandalism, the harassment, the restraining order violations, the meltdown with the bat. They played the videos in court, the sound of Liam screaming, You stole her from me, echoed through the room. He dropped his head, unable to watch. Then came his turn to speak. He cried, loud, snotty, chest-heaving sobs. Said he'd lost control, that he just loved too much. Tried to twist it into a tragic romance. But the judge wasn't moved. She looked at him like she'd seen 100 men just like him before. Love, she said sharply, doesn't look like stalking, threats, or destruction. Love does not make people afraid to sleep at night. And then she sentenced him. 2 years behind bars, mandatory counseling, probation after. The gavel hit like thunder. It was over. Outside, reporters swarmed. Questions shouted, cameras flashing. I didn't answer any, but Daniel did. When someone asked, "How do you feel about your son going to prison?" he said, clear and unshaken. "I feel relieved that Maya is safe. That's all that matters." That night, back at Daniel's house, I finally let myself breathe. The porch light glowed soft, the repaired mailbox standing tall. My car, new tires, fresh paint, sat in the driveway without a scratch. And Daniel was beside me, steady, as he'd always been. We didn't need big declarations, just the quiet fact that I wasn't alone anymore. Later, scrolling through my phone, I saw Liam's meme still circulating. The freeze frame of him screaming, captioned, "When she finds someone better than you, and it's your dad." For once, the internet wasn't cruel. It was honest, and maybe a little poetic. Because Liam was wrong. I did find someone better. And apparently genetics really do run in the family.